No, obviously not. What the hell's your problem? This feels like an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Leaks and the rumor mill have been part of the Age of Sigmar community since 1st edition came out. I remember when the all-human rework to the cities of Sigmar, or the introduction of Chaos Dwarves, was first leaked back in 2nd edition. And then finally, like 4 years after the original leak, we finally got the all-humans rework to Cities of Sigmar, and then like another 2 years after that, we finally got Chaos Dwarves. So even if this leak is real, who's to say it's real for next edition? To the segment of my audience that occasionally goes outside, I know what you're yelling, screaming, shouting at your monitor. Sally, you hot piece of eye candy. What the hell are you talking about? And to that I say, oh wow, don't be such a flirt, you filthy animals. But also, yes, I apologize profusely. I can explain a bit more clearly. So on the Grand Alliance image board forum, the user Boole posted a series of very threatening paragraphs which outlined some huge changes coming to the Age of Sigmar setting in the following edition. The main points from these leaks are as follows. Slaanesh is freed from her prison. Archaon invades Azir. Archaon kills Azir. Presumably he's already killed the other gods as well. In one final act of defiance, Sigmar does something, and for some reason, which combines the mortal realms into one world. A final world. Some might say, the last world. Basically, this means that we reset back to Warhammer Fantasy. The Lumineth Realm Lords apparently rule an island nation in the middle of the ocean. The cities of Sigmar go back to being a humano-centric, highly religiously zealous empire. The cities of Sigmar get a cog fort, apparently. This was posted sometime in the last couple weeks, depending on when you're watching this. And I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. To me, this reads like an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Like, seriously? Does this not seem basically handcrafted to rage bait longtime AOS fans? The leak is written in such a way to insinuate that Games Workshop is basically going to be discontinuing Age of Sigmar as a game line and merging its model lines into the old world, akin to what happened to the Beastmen sometime last edition. It's dumb, and I'm gonna spend some time explaining why it's dumb. I wasn't originally going to do this. When I first saw the leaks, I initially dismissed them out of hand, which is what you're supposed to do with leaks. But I decided to make this video anyway because I saw a lot of people I really respect taking this stuff really seriously. Let's start by talking a little bit more deeply about the leak itself from the perspective of plausibility. Y'all remember my video, Warhammer's Xenos problem? In that video, Satyr Mixable, no idea who that is, talked about how in 7th and 8th edition, Games Workshop were pretty obviously setting up for an Eldar-driven end times event for 40k. The Inari were gonna get the Crone Swords, reawaken Yniad. The Eldar were gonna ascend into extraplanar beings inside the Infinity Circuit. Guilliman was gonna reform the Imperium, away from the Imperial cult. It was pretty obvious that at one point, Yniad was gonna kill one or more of the Chaos Gods. And then Warhammer Fantasy's End Times happened, and was received so disastrously that Games Workshop basically apologized for it, like 9 years after the fact, by making the old world. Like, really, do you understand how rare that is? Games Workshop, as a company, is extremely stubborn. It does not matter if something is dumb or just plain poorly designed. They will double and triple down and eventually quadruple down for decades before they ever decide to change that thing. Like, Games Workshop still uses lidded pots. The same basic design of pot that they've been using since the 80s that has never actually worked. But that's just how they do things at Games Workshop. That's how we've always done it, so that's how we're gonna keep doing it. Our paint pots are lidded, our players will take turns moving, then shooting, then charging, and then fighting with their entire armies, and Space Marines will always get their equal attention cake. The original destruction of the old world of Warhammer Fantasy was an extreme confluence of once-in-a-lifetime events for Games Workshop that have not and probably will never be truly replicated again. What do I mean by that? Well, going back to that original video again, Warhammer Fantasy was discontinued because of stagnance. A stagnant player base, a stagnant model line, a stagnant world. GW was losing money about as quickly as the Titanic was taking on water. Which is to say, not actually very fast, but that meant nobody really noticed the ship was sinking until it was already far too late to fix the problem. They just had to abandon ship. If they didn't, Games Workshop was probably gonna have to declare bankruptcy and shut their doors. 40K 8th edition saved the company from shutting down in the mid-2010s, and now they're so back it's unreal. Like the tournament. But is any of this the case with Age of Sigmar? No! Age of Sigmar gets exponentially more popular with every edition. Spearhead has seemingly perfected the army in a single box format Games Workshop has been trying to do with Combat Patrol. Factions are constantly getting meaningful model line additions, and other model lines are basically begging for full range refreshes, giving Games Workshop another decade worth of models to release. They simply have no financial incentive to actually make as drastic of a change as these leaks are describing. Well, fuck. I need to change how I talk about this slightly now. For those who don't know, this video is being written during Adepticon. Adepticon is basically the Warhammer E3. It's the convention that Games Workshop uses to host their reveal shows. And as part of that reveal show, they revealed the Cog Forts, which was a unit for the cities of Sigmar that the leak said that the faction was going to get in 5th edition. Which means there is at least one element in which this leak is correct, and that does change how I have to talk about this. I now have to shift away from explaining to you why I don't think the leaks are true to explaining to you why I don't think certain parts of the leaks are true, which is a pretty different battle to have to fight. This went from a matter of debunking to a matter of sifting fact from fiction. So let's talk more about the specifics of the leak itself. The gates of Azyr get breached by the armies of the Everchosen. Chaos storms the Great Golden City. Archaon's armies press forward, successfully destroying the city of Azyr. Sigmar initiates a plan he's been cooking up for centuries. One last act of defiance against the Everchosen. The winds of magic which formed and bind the mortal realms begin to churn as Archaon the Everchosen enters the innermost sanctums of Azyr. Sigmar and Archaon engage in one final duel. Sigmar, just like all his champions, his eternal warriors, and billions of his subjects before him, is crushed underfoot by Archaon the Everchosen, almost effortlessly. The Skaven are also involved somehow. They're around. As Sigmar lays dying, his empire is forever changed as he pulls the trigger on that great plan. To prevent chaos from conquering the mortal realms, he destroys them and reforges them into one world, one last bastion against chaos. The last world. The cities of Sigmar become a grimdark empire of humano-supremacists who zealously worship their dead god king. The Lumineth realm lords control an island nation in the center of the ocean. The Fire Slayers and Caradhran overlords become rulers of Khazalid holds deep in the mountains. And there's a suspiciously Bretonia-looking kingdom of knights to the west, and a suspiciously Cathay-looking empire of dragon worshippers to the east. The Stormcast Eternals are still around, but can no longer reforge, which actually just for real makes them fantasy space marines. Assuming the Celestant Prime, survives the Siege of Terra, the destruction of Azir, he'd be hit with a wave of nostalgia, I'd think, because this is just the old world of Warhammer Fantasy again. Apparently, each of the continents are going to map onto one of the winds of magic, so Azir isn't going to be a realm made out of pure light magic, it's going to be a continent made of light magic, I guess? A lot of people are seeing the announcement of cog forts and concluding that this means the leaks, everything I just described, is going to come true exactly as I described it. In order to disprove that, I need to point to something which is provably wrong about the leaks to then reestablish that there are elements about the leaks which are not true. Thankfully, the cog forts also help me do this. Everything's about these goddamn cog forts now. In the leak, Boole said that the cog forts were going to be given to the cities of Sigmar in 5th edition, but in Adepticon, they were revealed as part of the 4th edition Cities of Sigmar Battle Tome, which has yet to release at time of writing. He also said that there were going to be 6 variants of the cog fort in a previous leak, and so far we've only heard of the one. So no, not everything in the leaks are going to come true. Some things already haven't. I do think 5th edition is going to have some kind of shake-up to the world of Age of Sigmar. AOS is over a decade old now, and the status quo of the setting hasn't meaningfully changed in a long time. It's really been since malign sorceries introduced the idea of the Necroquake, and also that big cloud over Azir that briefly stopped Stormcast Eternals from reforging. Because, frankly, Kragnos was kind of a dud. I just don't think it'll be nearly this drastic. In fact, while writing this video, Boole has outright said as much. To quote him, "Dropping these heavy rumors a whole year early. I guess I did it because, well, we've all been through the end times before, and this news hit too close to home. Maybe it's not as bad as it sounds, though. Probably best to leave this topic for next year. I really don't want to get into it anymore." So the leaker is already making vague gestures at the idea that the original leak was exaggerated, that it won't be as bad as he originally said. So what will happen then? Will Archaon invade Azir? Probably. That sounds plausible. That even sounds like a good hook for next edition. Will Games Workshop try to find a lore reason to bring in these fancy new old world models that everyone loves but nobody buys because it would require playing old world? Yeah, I absolutely think they will. Obviously, Games Workshop doesn't publish hard sales numbers, but I can tell you from personal experience that most local stores in my area don't even sell Old World anymore, and the ones that do almost never actually move their product. One of my friendly local game stores has had one of those 2-player starter sets sitting on their shelves for over a year now. nobody is playing Old World. Games Workshop has a vested interest in trying to migrate those new models into a game series where they might actually get used. The issue is that independent human factions aren't really possible under the current status quo of the setting. If you're a human, you either live in a city of Sigmar or you're a chaos cultist, without much room in between. I could see Archaon invading Azir as a way to destabilize his empire enough to narratively justify the emergence of independent human empires. Those independent human empires also may just so happen to look an awful lot like Bretonnians or Cathayans. I think Age of Sigmar is due for a shakeup. I think the Mortal Realms are primed for a big change. But I don't think a big change means the destruction of the Mortal Realms. Or for that matter, any form of rebooting the entire setting to make it a shallow imitation of Warhammer Fantasy battles. And I certainly don't think that a lame retread of the Siege of Terra is gonna be how they do that, even if they do decide to do it. To be honest, that's all I really have to say on the subject. What do you think? Do you really think Games Workshop is gonna just go ahead and reboot their most popular fantasy wargame? If so, why? I suppose they've done it before, but Age of Sigmar is so much more popular than Warhammer Fantasy Battles ever was. They'd be leaving a lot of money on the table by just rebooting it. I don't know. Tell me what you think, and have a nice day. Thank you for watching that video. I want to very briefly thank the patrons. They are S.J. Klubpecki, Jamie Harris, Paul Camagliano, Henry Mushell, Connor Shaver, Gecko551, Juno Me, and Gabriel Maggio. I also want to apologize for making those people wait 10 months for a video. That was not my original, that was not my original intent, but I want to talk a little bit more about the future of the channel before the video concludes, just because I realize that, you know, it's a little bit, it's a little bit shit to, you know, leave for 10 months and then come back with what is ultimately a fairly low effort video discussing some Age of Sigmar fandom drama, essentially. I have been working on a lot of very big projects. Obviously, I've been working on a lot of, like, tabletop games with Sword and Board Games, but that's irrelevant. The larger thing is just that these videos have taken longer and longer to make as I have, you know, increased their production quality and, as I would hope, writing quality as well. But that also means that the videos get longer, they take longer to make, and after a certain point, it's I get trapped in this cycle of being like, oh, well, I've been gone for 6 months, so the next video I put out has to be like 6 months worth of effort. And then by the time I get close to that, it's like, oh, well, this isn't good enough either, because now it's been 8 months, 9 months, now 10 months since my last video. So I just wanted to put this video out because, you know, I needed to get back on the horse. I needed to keep my skills a bit polished. I'm sorry for the kind of janky audio in this video, but it's all building to a fairly large video project I've been working on that I am hoping I'll have something to show for fairly soon. So in the meantime, I just wanted to make this video to basically say, hey, by the way, I am still alive. I have not yet perished. So thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking around. You will be seeing more of me in the future. If you want to see more of what I've been working on, you can look at the games I've made and put out in the meantime. And I have something really cool coming down the pipe that I will talk more about publicly soon. But needless to say, I am very excited for what my next video will be. Thank you.